We live in a world where almost everyone talks about anxiety, depression, burnout, but nobody talks about recovery. And so this begs the question, have we normalized living with mental illnesses more than healing from them? So it's no secret that we've made tons of progress surrounding mental health struggles. I mean, not so long ago, we wouldn't even openly discuss that we were feeling depressed or that, I don't know, we were maybe bipolar, that we were diagnosed with anxiety. We wouldn't hear those things. I mean, in my family especially, whenever, there were suicides, they would just say, oh, well, the devil entered their mind and that's what happens and that you need to go to church. And so it's great that it's no longer taboo to say, I am anxious, I have anxiety, or I am feeling extremely depressed, I am diagnosed with depression. But while many people report experiencing these types of feelings or issues, there's still a pretty big gap between how many people report having these symptoms and how many actually seek help. Somewhere along the way, being unwell became quirky and like part of our identity. Something we joke about, we post about, we laugh at, and wear like a badge of relatability. And we even go as far as to use it in our jokes and our slangs. Say like, haha, I want to kill myself or something like that. And sometimes you might get a chuckle. Like it's like a pretty common expression nowadays to just like say, oh, I want to go, oh, I'm so, I don't know, like things like that where you're kind of like ridiculing mental health struggles. And I think it stemmed from something good, like people wanted to maybe make others feel like they're not alone. People wanted to laugh at their struggles because, behind closed doors, this is something that they were genuinely dealing with and that felt heavy. But, they were like, let me just laugh about my struggles. Let me just humanize these issues. But I think instead of taking this as the serious cause that it is, we kind of learn to just take these things lightly and just extremely normalizes to the point that when somebody tells us this, we no longer like bat an eye. We're like, okay, haha, me too, And so if we just keep joking about wanting to die, joking about how depressed we feel, about oh my God, our anxiety is so bad, but we never share what is actually helping us get out of that. And we just, post the memes when we're going through it. Oh, where does that lead us to? Because I see this a lot with especially the younger generations, the younger Gen Z generation, and then also the Gen Alpha. You joke about it, you post about it, you laugh with your friends about it, but you don't do anything to actually get better. You kind of just ride it out. You're like, oh, well, everybody goes through this. And yes, everybody seems to be going through this, but just because a lot of people go through it doesn't mean that it's like normal. It doesn't mean that this isn't a severe issue. Like if you're to the point where you genuinely are having suicidal thoughts or where you're genuinely depressed, that's not normal. And that isn't just life, and that isn't just how life should be. There is another option, but because we don't talk about the things that actually help us out, like we never discover it, or few people actually discover it, and few people actually fix this very, very big issue that is going on in their lives. And honestly, maybe this is not just a cultural thing. I think if so many people are experiencing these symptoms of like depression and anxiety, which are like the top ones, but also autism and bipolar, like so many people are just experiencing more and more mental health issues. We are all in a way reacting to an environment and a life that we were never meant to be living. So zoochosis is a psychological condition seen in animals who are in captivity, like zoos. They start doing things that are very out of character that this particular animal species usually doesn't do in the outside world. Things like pacing back and forth, rocking back and forth, self-harming, eating their own vomit, just like clear indications that they're in distress, right? These are not like normal behaviors to have. And so scientists have concluded that this is likely due to the fact that their environment is not meeting their physical needs. physical and psychological needs. It's like kind of like when you see a giraffe and you go to the zoo. I went to the Bronx Zoo not too long ago, and it was just a giraffe inside of an indoor place with like a small window of sunlight, one singular tree, and it was eating from that one singular tree. It was alone, completely isolated, and like just like what that does to an animal, I would assume is just like they know that that's not what they're supposed to be doing. Like what kind of enrichment are they getting from that kind of life, you know? Or when you see a cheetah and it's just like in this very small confined space when they're normally supposed to be running around where their terrain, you know, that is not normal. And so that is what zoochosis is. It's like this phenomenon that explains why animals that are in zoos experience really weird behaviors. Like they know that they are in captivity. They know that they are in confinement. They know that is not the proper enrichment that they are supposed to be receiving. And trans species psychology suggests that humans aren't that different. So our brains evolved for community, nature, and freedom. Three things that a lot of us can argue that we are not receiving in today's world. I mean, we to the bone, right? Like we are programmed to be hunters and gatherers. That is like how we were meant to survive. Like this is all really new. And like I'm sitting here in my room and I'm just recording this video and just thinking about this setup. I'm in, between four walls. It's a very small room and it doesn't feel fulfilling. Like when I spend time in nature, when I've gone to the Grand Canyon, I love to go to Washington and Oregon just to hike and camp out. It's a different feeling that you get versus like, let's say I were to just spend a full day just in my room, which like how many of us have done that, like me. There's been days where I'm like busy working and like I'm just in my room working. That's not healthy for us. When you think about what the average person's day to day looks like, okay, you wake up, you go to work, you spend 8 hours in a cubicle, get a 30-minute break, maybe an hour, and then you go home, you spend the rest of your night in a house in between four walls, you go to sleep and you do it all over again. Like our brains were not developed for cubicles and screens and unimportant and constant noise. So there are a lot of symptoms of zoochosis that humans experience, which kind of back up the idea that humans have zoochosis, and our zoochosis is seen through like mental health struggles, like depression, like bipolar, like borderline, all of these things. And not to downplay that a lot of these things are like, I don't want to make it seem like these things are all zoochosis, but this is just like a conspiracy theory that's out there that I thought was pretty interesting. Sometimes when I think about my mental health struggles, I feel like a loser because I'm like, well, why can't I be normal? But I think when we're in this world with just, capitalism, gotta love it. And we're just grinding it out for 60 years. I mean, like even just the school system, right? You go to school 8 hours a day, you get like summer off, and that's pretty much it. When I was in high school, I was doing sports, I was in zero period, and then I would work my senior year. So literally I would leave my house like at 5 a.m. and I wouldn't come back until 9 p.m. This was like in high school, and it didn't really get any better. If anything, it just got worse because I started working 8-hour shifts. I started working 2 jobs, so 16-hour shifts. It was just constantly living like this, and I felt it. I felt that this wasn't life. I felt like, this is not normal. Like when you don't see the sun because you're working all day or because you're in a classroom all day, it's not normal. It affects you. And so some of the symptoms that a lot of humans exhibit are 1, repetitive behavior. So like I said, we wake up, maybe we scroll, we drive to work. Some of us commute a really long time to work. And we do this for decades. This is repetitive behavior. Or we go to school for 20 years, high school, college, master's, grad school, all of this, right? It's like the same thing over and over again. Another thing that is really prevalent in animals experiencing zoochosis is excessive grooming. And our obsession with our appearance is also just not normal. Like, a lot of us live for social validation, whether it's through how we post ourselves online or how we present ourselves in front of strangers or in front of our loved ones. We put luxury cars, luxury apartments, luxury jewelry or clothes on a pedestal. We love our super expensive homes, our new electronics. We love the beauty procedures, how much money are these beauty industries worth, right? Like these are all signs of just excessive grooming. I remember when I was in high school, and I talked about this in a video, there were times where I just felt so ugly. And I don't think it was by my standards. I just compared myself to everybody else I saw online, everybody else I saw in person. And let's say I was going to an event, like a birthday party or something, or maybe it was Disneyland, maybe it was just the grocery store. When I felt this ugly, like I didn't even want to go out. I stayed indoors because I'm like, no, I don't want anybody to see me like this. Like this is not normal. When you go out and you realize everybody's fucking human, nobody looks like they're walking around with like a beauty filter or anything. We just have this immense pressure to just look presentable all the time. Another thing is learned helplessness. So these animals kind of just succumb to the fact that they are in a cage. They don't do anything to like try to escape. Like they don't do anything because they just realize that nothing is going to change. They're going to be in this cage forever. And I think a lot of humans actually have this trait as well, learned helplessness, right? We convince ourselves that nothing can change. The world is just the way it is. I think a lot of us hate the way the world is. We hate it. We hate seeing homeless people. We hate seeing like world hunger, and then just when we work at a fast food job, throwing away pounds of food. We hate the fact that maybe there are people who own 100 luxury cars that are just sitting in their garage. Meanwhile, there's people who like can't even pay their rent. There are so many problems that I think as a collective we can agree that are very real big issues, but also as a collective we're kind of just like, that's the way the world is. What can we do about it? Then also when we just take a look at our own lives, the burnout, the depression, the anxiety, that's just part of being an adult. What can we do about it? And so while we are not in physical cages, we do kind of live like we are. We're restricted by systems that disconnect us from our community, from nature, from true meaning, and from rest. So do we have zoochosis or mental health struggles linked with zoochosis? Everyone will have their own opinion and their own truth, and you can form very strong arguments for either side. But I think that at the very least, most of us can agree with the fact that there are disparities in our socioeconomic world that have significant psychological and emotional impacts on us. And again, the reason why I like to not tell myself this, but just remind myself that a lot of the conditions that we are living in are not normal is because I don't ever want to make myself feel bad or blame myself for like the mental health struggles that I have. I have depression. I have borderline personality disorder. So these are like very big issues that have affected a lot of my life. And sometimes I feel very bad because I'm like, well, how would my life look like if I didn't have these issues, if I was quote unquote normal? And the truth is that we cannot blame ourselves if we have these types of symptoms. I think it's very easy to feel like we have to have it all together. We have to figure it out on our own. We have to thug it out. We have to write it out. We have to be strong. We have to not be weak-minded. But the truth is that so many conditions that we are put in are not normal. And so I want to talk a little bit about what living with these disorders actually looks like, because yes, your story about how you ghosted all your friends because you were too anxious to reach out to them, or how you did your makeup, you did your hair, you got all ready, face beat and everything, but you were so anxious that you actually just took it all off and went back to sleep, or that you were so depressed for so long that you couldn't get out of bed for several days, or you couldn't upkeep your personal hygiene, or you had this depression room. While these things may go viral, the reality is that these experiences are not normal. These experiences are not healthy or fun, and they're not so laughable. They make your life fucking miserable, if we're being honest. So having extreme mood swings, having extreme panic attacks, feeling extremely anxious or irritable or sad all the time, to the point where you can't even hold a job, or you're skipping classes, or your relationships are falling apart, or you not being able to even look at yourself in the mirror because you don't recognize who you see, or you don't like who you see. These are not hee hee ha ha moments. These are literally ruining your life. These are horrible things to be experiencing. And we're so comfortable admitting that we're struggling because we love making other people giggle and being like, me too. But we are not so comfortable getting the help. I mean, the amount of people that tell me, oh yeah, I have these issues too. Oh yeah, you know what? I have anxiety, or oh my God, I was so anxious. Everybody in my life. The amount of people who have gone to therapy for it, one person, it's insane. And so let me tell you about my most recent experience, because I've been in and out of therapy since I was 17. And I have always normalized therapy and medication, because when I was 17, it helped me out tremendously. I tried to off myself, and I'm still here because of the medication and the therapy. But I have been in and out of it multiple times because maybe I couldn't find a therapist that I connected well with, or I just felt like I didn't have the time, or I felt like I had really strong coping strategies that allowed me to live or cope with the symptoms of my borderline, of my depression. But very recently, these symptoms became unmanageable. I have a lot of stressors going on in my life right now, and it got to the point where it just triggered this really intense depressive episode, and then triggered a lot of the negative traits of my borderline. And I was not talking to my parents anymore. I was just being I'm gonna be honest, a bitch to my boyfriend. I was putting him through hell because I was just experiencing these constant mood swings, this constant irritability. I couldn't bring myself out of bed. I had this really huge meltdown where I genuinely wanted to myself, and the only reason why I didn't is because my mom came home, and I just remember even just getting mad, oh my God, she's home now, I can't do it. Which again, when you're in that point, I think I can already hear some people are like, oh my God, you're so selfish. That's not the solution. And I agree, it's not the solution. But if you are in that point, you're not thinking rationally. You're not, there's no logic behind that, right? When you're depressed and when you're that deep in it, it's like a cloud. It clouds everything. It clouds your judgment. It clouds your ability to reason with yourself. It clouds your ability to just dissect your emotions. It clouds everything. It warps the reality, right? Because the reality is where I am now, right? The day after I had that experience, I called my insurance. I was like, I need help. And I scheduled a bunch of appointments with a therapist until I found one that I clicked with. And then a week later, maybe even less, I was on meds, night and day. It was night and day. It's crazy because I was dealing with these symptoms of depression for a long time, and I knew that I was, but I think I still felt like I was able to bounce back. Like any second, I was expecting for my brain to just like bounce back because I was still taking care of myself or still trying to take care of myself. And normally these things would work, but it just, this time, no matter what I did, no matter what I tried, nothing worked. I was still sad. And so that's why I decided to go on meds again. And just the shift, I felt it. It was instantaneous almost, where I no longer felt sad. I no longer felt like everything was clouded with this like gray filter, because that's literally how it felt. I was not able to look at something, no matter how beautiful it was, and be like, that's beautiful. I was not able to have a single experience, no matter how wonderful it was, and just be like, this is wonderful. Like, I am feeling so much joy right now. I was not able to experience these emotions. And I asked my boyfriend, I'm like, do you see this shift too? And he's like, yeah, like you're a completely different person. This is the person that I've missed. My relationships are just so much better. Everything is just so much better. And it is that easy sometimes, right? For me, this process was like this because I have a history of depression. I know what medication works well for me. I know how to open up to a therapist. And we were able to just start tackling these issues right away. But a lot of the times we just don't reach out. It took me until I was at my breaking point, literally, to reach out. And I wish I would have just reached out way, way sooner, because it was just so unnecessary for me to be dealing with those emotions, with that state of depression. It was so unnecessary. And it just doesn't make sense. Like, when you break your arm, you go to the doctor, you get a cast. When you get an infection, you go to the doctor, antibiotics. When your wisdom tooth is just bothering you, you go to the dentist, you get it removed. But when it comes to our brain, when we have these symptoms of depression or anxiety or whatever it is, we don't do that. We just sort of thug it out. And so yes, as a society, are we more accepting of mental illnesses? Yes. We say, yes, mental illnesses exist. Yes, these are very real issues. But then why don't we normalize getting the treatment for it? Like, I didn't even know, right? If you are having a suicidal idealization, or you just have those urges, you can go to the ER. You can go to the ER and you can be like, this is what I have. And they'll take care of you. They have a whole process for that. I didn't even know that. And so when you're sick, let's say you're sick from a cold, super easy to fix. Either you do the home remedies or you get medicine or whatever. What happens if you don't treat it though? That's when the pneumonia, maybe the bronchitis, maybe these really big issues start to occur because you didn't treat something that was like an easy fix. And so that's literally what happened. I didn't treat the depression or the symptoms of depression. I didn't seek help from a therapist. I didn't try to get on medication sooner. And so what did it do for me? It led to me about to like do something that was irreversible, that would severely impact everybody around me and obviously myself. And the remedies exist, so it just doesn't make any sense. Recently, I had a friend. This person just did something that was very out of character. The next morning, they felt really bad about it. And I asked them, I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? Because I talked to one of their other friends and they were like, yeah, this person has just been acting very strange. Like, I'm very worried for them. I'm genuinely scared. I don't know where their life is like heading. Like, they're usually very bright and they like, figure it out. But lately they've just been doing something stupid after something stupid. And so I was just like, what is going on with you? Like, why? And I don't want to like say too much because obviously like I don't want to out them or anything. But after doing some talking, we kind of realized that, for a long time, they had certain symptoms that sounded a lot like depression, sounded a lot like anxiety. This person is a guy. And when I was talking about it, I'm like, well, why is it? Like, why do you think? And again, it's really hard because I want to say what it is, but at the same time I don't. But I think it'll make so much more sense if I do. But I will say this person had a very traumatic childhood. And when these symptoms or these mental health issues usually are so easy to get if you have like childhood trauma. A lot of these things stem from childhood trauma. And childhood trauma is really funny because some people can literally get beat. Some people can experience these very, very disgusting things and they'll be fine. And somebody else can experience getting lost at a Walmart when they were 5 and that turns into trauma. It's just like very different to how the brain processes different experiences. So literally anything can be childhood trauma. You can get dropped or you can experience some really big things. Anything can be childhood trauma. And those can turn into really big issues later on, especially if you never deal with them. And so we were talking about maybe the traits that he's always had, right? And he's always just been like, yeah, like, you know, I was always taught like we weren't, as a man, like I wasn't supposed to share my emotions. I wasn't supposed to talk about my feelings. And so now as an adult, I do that too. And for a long time, I've been bottling up these feelings of just numbness. I feel like I can't experience joy. I also can't really experience sadness. And so I think I just did this thing because of it, because it was like an outlet almost for the emotions. How many men, especially, kind of grow up this way of just thinking that they are unable to talk about their emotions? And so anyways, I told him, I was like, okay, well, have you gone to a therapist to talk about this? And he was like, oh, I've never really believed in therapy. And I was just like, okay, well, you admitted that, you know, the change that you saw in me from the meds and from therapy has, you know, like it's clear as day. And I was like, you know, I think knowing your childhood and how you grew up, I think it's completely normal for you to have these emotions because they tie directly to a lot of like the childhood issues that he had. And I was like, it's so normal. He was just telling me about like just why he felt like he couldn't or he shouldn't go to therapy. He should just be able to figure it all out. And it's just like, again, what will be the breaking point for people? I have another friend who suffers from extreme anxiety. He shut out his family completely. You can clearly see when, you know, he's getting ready. He's like, yes, I'm going to go and I'm going to go. And then something just hits and he's just like a different person. No, I'm not going to go. And no, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. I don't want to go. I can't go. And it's just, again, I've told him for so many years, get help. There's, you know, remedies for this. Like you shouldn't be, or you shouldn't be in a position where you have to isolate yourself. But another person who's just like, I don't really believe in therapy, something about talking to a stranger. And it's just like, how can you not believe in something like you've never even tried? I think that's a really big excuse that people make of like, I don't believe in therapy. I don't feel comfortable talking to a person. I think anything that they tell me like is not something that I don't already know. Nobody's going to know my life more than I know my life. Although sometimes people are like, I've gone to a therapist, they were judging me. I didn't like to be judged. And the whole time the judging is just like offering potential solutions or new perspectives. And we just shut these things out and we're like, no. But these, like, what's the other option? Because eventually, if you keep living with these issues, like, you're going to reach a breaking point. And let's talk about who is actually getting help, because there are people who are getting help, right? So 1 in 5 adults experience some sort of mental health struggles. But so many of these people don't ever seek out treatment. There is a gender gap, okay? Women are almost twice as likely as men to receive mental health treatment. The statistic is 21% of women versus 13% of men, even though the suicide rate among males in 2023 was approximately 4 times higher than the rate among females. Males make up 50% of the population, but nearly 80% of suicides. And again, only 13% of them are getting help. I mean, the statistic for women is pretty low, 21%. But 13% is crazy, even though these men do are the ones who end up committing suicide. And I think that this can absolutely be tied to stigmas, right? Oh, I have to be a man and I have to figure this out all on my own. I have to be strong and it comes down to me. But at the end of the day, it comes down to like personal responsibility. Do you want to keep living this way or not? Because again, the remedies are out there. You don't want to be angry so much. You don't want to be an abuser. There's anger management courses. A lot of these things again stem from trauma. It is your responsibility to find a solution. You're not creating a remedy. They're already out there. All you have to do is just like get into contact with someone. You're feeling really, really sad. What do you think that's going to lead to? The statistic shows, right? What do you think that's going to lead to? Do you want to keep feeling this way over and over and every day for the rest of your life? Or do you want to do something about it? If these issues are seriously ruining your life, like it is your responsibility to get help. It is your responsibility to do something about it. If you have somebody who is going to be that person to drag you to therapy, to drag you to the psychiatrist, great. But a lot of us, we don't have that person. A lot of us don't. So you have to be that person for yourself, because what is the other outcome? White adults are almost twice as likely to get help compared to Black or Hispanic adults. That's 24.4% versus 12 to 15%. And again, this could be tied to cultural patterns and stigmas, but the only way to break free from these generational patterns of I don't believe in therapy, I don't believe in meds, this is all just a demon, let me go to church, is to be the change. That's it. A lot of the times people are like, oh, therapy's for white people. No, therapy is for humans who need it. And it's crazy because I didn't write down the statistic for this, but I remember reading that Black or Hispanic adults or people of color, minorities, are more likely to experience mental health issues. There is also a socioeconomic disparity where people with lower income experience more mental health challenges, yet they're least likely to receive treatment. And unfortunately, this could be due to accessibility. I don't want to sound tone deaf in this video because I know therapy is really expensive. I know that not a lot of people, not everyone will have the funds for it, and that's very, very unfortunate. But if you have the means to get help, I know there's a lot of like community-led organizations that offer some sort of like group therapy for low-income neighborhoods. You could also start taking, like, there's also other means if like therapy is just extremely inaccessible. Take a cheap vitamin D supplement, clean up your diet, start exercising, because these are all things that directly affect your mental health too. Like I said, there are so many things going on in the world that make it feel very, very heavy to even just live. So we have to do everything that we can do, right? Do anything in your immediate control to be able to navigate this landscape a little bit better. If that is controlling your nutrition, if that is working out, reading books, finding coping strategies, listening to podcasts about mental health. I mean, nowadays you could find a therapist on TikTok who'll share really cool and beneficial coping strategies. We have to do anything that we can to be better, because that's what it is at the end of the day. Either you're stuck with the mental health illness, and if you don't do anything, absolutely nothing to get better, chances are you're not just gonna get better over a day. Chances are you're going to get exponentially worse. So you have to do something to just make it out. I have insurance. I have like the state insurance or whatever. And I still thought it was like going to be really hard to look for a therapist, and it was actually really, really easy. When I was in college, I was using like the campus counselor to get therapy. So there are other means. And again, I know it's super expensive, but anything is better than just being like, oh, I'm just depressed. Here's my depression room. rotting in my bed, I'm not doing anything, just succumbing to your mental health issues, because that literally gets you nowhere. And again, I want to bring it back to why this normalization is so dangerous. Again, love that we're talking about mental health, and love that we're like, yeah, a lot of people experience it, but we've created a culture where everybody seems to identify with mental health illnesses, but very few people actually pursue recovery. And that is the danger of over normalizing these things, because yes, it's okay to not feel okay, but that doesn't mean it's normal. There's a difference between what is common and what is healthy. And I think a lot of people also think that you're strong for handling this alone, for writing it out or thugging it out. But no, real strength comes from admitting to yourself and to others that, hey, you might need help. This normalization creates a false sense of community around shared struggle rather than shared healing, rather than, being happy for each other because you've both made it out the other end. You're just feeling closer to someone because they're both going through it, and that is not healthy. That doesn't encourage healing. That doesn't encourage healthy habits. Also, this normalization creates less of an urgency to seek help. You think, oh, everybody goes through this. Oh, I don't know a single person who's not depressed. Why should I get help? And lastly, there is a lower amount of empathy for those people who are genuinely struggling. When we constantly say, oh, I want to kill myself. Oh, I'm so depressed. Oh, I'm so... When somebody actually comes to us and genuinely tells us, I want to, or I am feeling so sad, I haven't gotten out, it's not a good or okay reaction to be like, haha, me too. That's not beneficial to the person who is opening up to you. That does not help anyone, but that is what this over normalization of these issues does. It seems like everybody is going through this, so that when somebody who is in dire need of help is like coming to you, you're kind of just like, haha, me too. I mean, there's so many celebrities. I think it's also like a meme on TikTok, right? Where it's like, oh, where are this? Oh, how does it go? Oh, the there were no signs meme. You're kind of laughing about maybe like a rapper who ended up committing, and they'll be like, oh, their fans say there were no signs, and it's just like a clear lyric that ties to their depression and stuff like that. And so yes, like, let's have these conversations about mental health, but let's not take these conversations lightly. Let's normalize seeking help and wanting better for ourselves, because the truth is that we need to be as best as we can in order to perform as best as we can in this really chaotic world. It's okay to recognize that you're hurting, but it's not okay to stop there. You need to get help. We need to start encouraging one another to get help. We need to start talking about the help that we received, and talking about strategies, coping mechanisms, what's actually helped us, right? Because the discussion can't end at, I'm depressed, haha, me too. But yeah, other than that, that was all that I had for you guys today. I wanted to make this video just as a quick reminder that admitting to yourself that you need help and recognizing that you have symptoms that are not normal is step one. There has to be more to the discussion. There is a solution. I want to emphasize that too. There are remedies for these things, and there is just no reason for you to be living and navigating through life feeling so low, because the remedies are out there. And if you've ever struggled with a mental illness and you've gotten out of it, share your experience. What helped you out? What stigmas did you have relating to therapy and meds? Let's make healing the new relatable. Only we have the power to do so. And yeah, until next time, bye.